Hello everyone and welcome to KARVR's film review show where we review films based on video games. Probably gonna need a better title. I really wanted to wear this hat today, but it's too small for my bloody head. So just for a little bit of context about what we're gonna do today, there are three things in this world that I love, and that's video games, music, and films. And I figured since we already do two of those things on this channel, I may as well throw in the third with the release of Detective Pikachu this week. Now my history with Pokemon is pretty lengthy. I've been a fan pretty much all my life. I think my first video game ever was Pokemon Gold on the Game Boy Color. So I've got a pretty extensive history with Pokemon, but I'm also one of those people who kind of lost track at a certain point. Once we got to Generation 5, I kind of fell off a bit. Just the designs got a bit much for me and it was hard to keep up with the games, getting the new consoles, etc, etc. But nevertheless, I've maintained my love for Pokemon ever since. Like even today, I still play the games with my mates every now and then. And me and the other guys at the Game Boys have been talking about doing randomizer stuff just because I've only experienced that for a short amount of time. Nuzlocke, all kinds of things still to do with Pokemon. And for that reason, I was pretty excited for this movie when it was coming out. Now, I'll admit, initially when they announced it, I had no excitement at all. We know what video game movies have been like, and the trailers didn't really do anything for me in the start. Like, some of the designs looked a little bit weird, like Charizard was really saggy in one of the shots, which looks much better in the film, don't worry. But as more trailers started to come out, I kind of grew into it. And a lot of people have been discussing whether this is the greatest video game movie of all time, and well, yeah, it kind of is. That's not to say by any means that the film was fantastic. There were a lot of issues I had with it, but there are also a lot of things that I loved about the film. And just so you know, this is going to be a no spoiler review. I'm only going to talk about a few things that may have been in the trailers. There are some things in the trailers that seem like pretty big plot points, so I'll kind of leave them to the side, just in case you haven't watched the trailers intentionally. We're just going to go through a basic summary of the movie, talk about the performances, what worked, what didn't work. Not going to go into any spoilers. Cool? Cool. I'm just going to wait for the plane to go past. So Detective Pikachu is about Justice Smith's character, Tim Goodman. He's this guy who doesn't have a Pokemon. People are worried about him because he doesn't have this Pokemon in his life. And then he finds out that his father has been in a car accident. So he goes down to Rhyme City where he worked, talks to the police, and he tries to just move on from there, but he meets his father's Pokemon partner, Pikachu, who, strangely enough, he can understand. Pokemon in this universe, much like the anime, just speak by saying their names. Pika Pika. But Tim Goodman can understand this Pikachu that he's met, and vice versa. Pikachu can understand Tim. So there's obviously this connection here, and what they want to do is they want to figure out what happened to Tim's father, and also what happened to Pikachu. He has amnesia. How did this happen? So it's this mystery film, which it's a detective film, of course it's going to be. And then things kind of go on from there. They run into some other Pokemon, Tim does the human work while Pikachu talks to the Pokemon, and they kind of use this ability that they have to their advantage. And by using some of the Pokemon that they have in this universe, they create some really interesting situations, some funny moments, specifically some with a Mr. Mime, some in a Pokemon battle ring, which isn't supposed to be in the city. There's a lot of events like that thrown into the film that make it really entertaining. And as I was saying before, with the Pokemon saying their names to speak like they do in the anime, this film seems to very much take most from that media side of Pokemon. In terms of the way that Pokemon act, in terms of the way that the universe is kind of structured, and even the themes of the movie, it's very in line with what the anime has shown in the past. And in terms of the Pokemon that's represented, like, it obviously takes into consideration all age groups. There's a lot of focus on the original Pokemon. Like, a lot of the main plot points happen with the original 151 Pokemon, not all of them, but some of the 151 Pokemon. And that's good because the newer fans would know who these Pokemon are. And the older fans they might be the only Pokemon that they know. So it's good that they're using that to kind of grasp their audience. I think it's a smart idea. But then there's also a bunch of new Pokemon thrown throughout. Like, I recognized a lot of them. But once it got to the Generation 5 and onwards, there were a whole bunch of Pokemon I didn't recognize. So obviously they're appealing to all fans of the franchise. And in terms of appealing to all different age groups, there's a lot of adult jokes in here. Like, nothing too risque or anything, but there are some jokes that kids are probably not going to get, which is interesting that they've found this way to appeal to all the markets. And usually that's a bit of a concern for me, that a film doesn't really have a specific audience in mind, but I think this one really navigates all areas the best that it can. It's really a family movie, to put it simply. Like, if you're a family of Pokemon fans, say you grew up with Pokemon and you have kids that like Pokemon, this is the perfect movie for you. And a lot of your enjoyment is gonna rely on how much you know or care about Pokemon. If you're not a Pokemon fan, there's probably not a lot for you here. And I say that for a specific reason, and that's mostly to do with the human characters. They're not great. That's not to say that the performances aren't good. We've got Catherine Newton, who plays Lucy Stevens, I think the character name was. She's a reporter who has a Psyduck as a Pokemon partner, and she gives it her all, and she's entertaining in some points, but the character is just very over the top and a bit much at the start of the movie. She kind of gets better as it goes on, as they don't need to establish who this character is anymore. But it's just a little bit more than I would have liked personally. But if you look at the older anime, a lot of the characters are like that. It's a cartoon meant for kids, so it kind of is taken that way. And the human characters, when they're introduced, are kind of treated in the same vein. So if you look at it from that perspective, it might be entertaining. It's just, for me personally, is a bit much. And then you got a whole bunch of other characters who just kind of seem a little bit stupid or nothing to do or not a lot of a development there. But then you've got the main character, Tim Goodman, who's played by Justice Smith. And I really like Justice Smith. I liked him a lot in Get Down. The Get Down, I watched that recently on Netflix, both parts are fantastic. And I vaguely remember him from Jurassic World. I believe he was in that movie. And I think he does okay with what he's given, but I think what he's given is not fantastic. He's a bit of a whiny character, very woe is me all the time. And yeah, he's in an unfortunate situation and he's had a bit of a hard life, but there's not a lot of light to this character thrown throughout. He's just kind of upset a lot of the time, which gets a bit hard to watch after a while. But again, I don't think that's so much a fault on his performance, more just what he was given. But talking about performances, when I found out that Ryan Reynolds was playing Pikachu, I was very skeptical. Again, just based on the limited knowledge I had of Detective Pikachu, it seemed like a very odd choice, like the guy from Deadpool, what? But watching this movie, oh my god, I don't think it would have worked without him. He's easily the best part about this movie, in my opinion. He is really funny. This movie is really funny at times, and a lot of it relies on how good Ryan's performance is. So props to the filmmakers for getting him for that. It's inspired choice, and it did well. And it's not just that he did a great performance, the movie really understands Pikachu and the other Pokemon. Like, it's not just a matter of they've been portrayed in a really great way by the voice cast or anything like that, but there's an understanding for what the Pokemon are, more so in line with the anime. Like, if you go through the Pokedex entries in the game, it kind of goes into the Pokemon a bit more, but most of it is represented in the anime. And yeah, it's really shown here. Like, there's a Cubone early in the film, which is crying when they find it, and they make reference to the fact that it's wearing the skull of its dead mother, which is evidently a bit weird. And stuff like that is all throughout the film. So many of the Pokemon are really understood here. And it really shows that the people who made it didn't just do it as a cash grab. There's a lot of thought and care put into it, and a lot of love, which I think was necessary considering how big this fan base was. When I was at the cinema, like, I just went through the ordeal of Endgame, where I went to see it twice, and both times the movie was packed. It was ridiculous. And I saw it like 3 or 4 days apart. I can't remember, 3 days apart. But when I went to see Detective Pikachu, there weren't many screenings. I think there were like 6 screenings for the whole day, which was a surprise. And even when I went to the cinema, it wasn't stupidly packed. But I would say maybe a third of the audience was either actively talking about Pokemon before the film, wearing full gear of Pikachu like merchandise and stuff like that. There was an EB Games right next to the cinema that was selling Detective Pikachu caps, like the one that he wears in the movie. And I think I saw 3 or 4 people wearing them as they went in. I almost bought one for the review, but don't spend money. And yeah, like, there's a really passionate fan base here. So the fact that they put that care into it, I think was necessary. And I think it's going to do really well simply for that fact alone. There's also another thing that's really heavy in the anime, and that's the relationship between Pokemon and human. Like, in the games, the initial idea is you capture these creatures and then you battle them until they pass out. It's a bit... But the anime kind of goes into this idea of relationships between humans and Pokemon a lot more. Like, it's in the games, but it's really a staple of the anime. And it's really present in this movie as well. Like, if you look around at the Pokemon world, it just feels alive. It feels real. You've got the Pokemon who are doing very human jobs along with the humans. If you've seen the trailers, you've got a Machamp with its 4 arms directing traffic, which is really funny. You've got Growlithe helping the police, which is, I think, something that's in the anime. In the movie, there are Squirtle that help firemen and stuff like that. There are Pokemon helping humans with these jobs, and it's a living, breathing world. And the world lives and breathes Pokemon. Like, it's a huge thing. It's all they ever talk about. In Tim's childhood room, he's got stuff from all different generations. There's a Rayquaza in his room. There's the black and white legendaries in his room. There's things about battles, because he wants to be a Pokemon trainer when he's a kid. And the world feels alive. It feels like if Pokemon was as popular in real life as it is there, where the Pokemon are alive, it's really the focus of this world, and it's amazing. It's great. It's awesome to see in live action and not just in the anime. But this theme of human-Pokemon relationship is throughout the whole film. And if you take out the performances, that's probably the best thing it has going for it, because it really spends all its time making sure that that is the focal point. At the start of the movie, Tim doesn't have a Pokemon, and people are worried that he doesn't have a Pokemon. They're called Pokemon partners because there's a specific Pokemon that everyone has that is like their best friend. They do everything with them. And for Tim not to have one is really odd. So it's nice to see that Pokemon aren't just tools or anything, or that it's not just, I'm a Pokemon trainer, I'm always going to have 6 Pokemon with me because I need to battle and to win and be the very best. Like, no one ever you get the idea. But yeah, like, the Pokemon feel important to the people who own them, which is awesome. That's how Pokemon should be. And yeah, like I said, the theme carries out throughout the movie, and it follows into the end of the film, and it takes this bit of an odd choice, if you ask me. Now, I will say, there's a Pokemon that's introduced in the movie. He's throughout the whole film, he's just kind of sparsely put out, and very much features in the final act. I won't say who it is in case you haven't seen the trailers, but it is in the trailers for anyone who's wondering what I'm talking about. And when I saw that, I thought it was a bit of fan service they were throwing in, just to kind of get butts in seats, you know, like, oh, who's this Pokemon that everyone loves? But I was looking into the game a bit, which again, I haven't played. I would have liked to have played it, but this review I did was very last minute, so I wouldn't have had enough time to really thoroughly go through the game. But I did some research, and I found the character is an important character in the game. So it makes sense that he's in the movie. But there are some choices they make with this Pokemon in terms of what they can do, and the main villain's motivations and their end goal. And that's kind of where it started to lose me. Like I get it, how much realism are you going to get out of a movie where tiny creatures fight each other until the other passes out using otherworldly powers and stuff like that? But they made some choices which were just a little bit much for me, specifically in what this Pokemon is able to do. Like, it's a bit hard to believe. And there's a final twist at the end, which again, I won't tell you what it is, but I don't know, it just seemed, trying to put everything together, it didn't really add up, if you wanted to think of it that way. I don't know that that really matters. Like, there's a lot of movies that have come out recently, like Us and even Endgame, where there's a lot of things that happen that don't really add up, where it's in the service of the film, so you got to kind of take it with a grain of salt. Like, at what point does believability become more important than good storytelling? You know what I mean? So I guess in that sense, it's okay. It was just a little bit like, I felt like that could have been a better decision. And yeah, there was just a lot of things that happened at the very end of the movie, which is where it kind of lost me. But overall, I very much enjoyed the experience. The plot was okay. It was a bit paint by numbers. I feel like it's been used plenty. I would have liked to have seen something different. But it was nice to see this very interesting perspective of the Pokemon world. A lot of people are going to watch this movie wanting to see Pokemon battles and catching Pokemon, and there are slight snippets of that, but it's very clear that that's not what this movie is about. And I like that they've gone with the idea that they've established, and they didn't just go all out, catch and battle Pokemon. Like, maybe they'll do that in the future. This movie, I have a feeling this movie might do pretty well. Depends on how it does with other audiences, because in Australia, if it's what I've seen, I don't know how much money it's going to make because not a lot of people there and not a lot of sessions, so people are probably still watching Endgame. But if it does well in other countries, then maybe we'll get more of these movies. I'd be happy to see more of these movies. But I'm just happy that they stuck with a storyline and didn't branch out just to explore all these things that they know people are going to be like, oh yeah, they really invested in a single story. But yeah, there's a lot of things to love in this movie and a lot of things to not love in this movie, depending on your taste. Some of the performances are a bit odd, some of them are fantastic. Ryan Reynolds, great choice. I never thought I'd say that, but he was a perfect Pikachu. Who'd have thunk it? The plot was a bit paint by numbers, a bit stale, and some of the choices made throughout the end were a little bit but the theming of the film is great, the Pokemon are great, the personification of them all is great, there's a lot of love and care put into everything, so if you're a Pokemon fan, you're gonna get a lot out of this movie. If you're not, there's probably not much for you here. So yeah, take that into consideration before you go out and see this movie. Now, if I had to give it a rating, I'd say out of the Doug trio, I'd give it 2 Diglets. Yeah. Thank you very much, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know. I'd love to keep doing film reviews. There's obviously a very significant film coming out in the next couple of months, maybe. Who knows? That I would love to talk about when it comes out. So let me know if you want to keep seeing stuff like this. And I'll see you next time. Finger guns! I wanna be the very best that no one ever was.